Got it. Can you see my screen? What's up, Sidharth? How are you? Oh, because I think we're on Instagram and this thing together. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining in. Today we have a. I think I'll need to mute one of my things as well. What's up, Sidharth? How's it going? Good, man. Good. So, tell me, can you see my screen on Weber? Where's the source of the. I can still hear like that microphone thing. One second. Let me.
So if you want to check, by the way, if you want to check out the screen, you may want to join on YouTube Live.
Still getting a bad disturbance. I don't know what it's because of. One second.
I think it's from my side because the moment I pause, it stops.
Oh,
Uh,
it has stopped now.
yeah, but I have to pause on Instagram.
Oh, okay. I think maybe if you mute your phone,
It's
will
on
that
mute
work?
actually. It is on mute. The volume is zero, but I think Instagram insists that. Does that work?
Can we test that? Hello? Say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, awesome.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, fellows. How's it going? How is everybody in the stream?
What's happening?
What we're going to talk about, you guys might have seen this already in the Telegram group as well as stories. Today we're going to talk about Siddharth. We're going to talk about his design journey, how he got started in design, a little bit about his story so far, and then we're going to dive into the main topic of this conversation, which is going to be live, real design case studies from his time at Headout. We're going to talk about some of the challenges that his team has faced as product designers and how they've solved it for Headout's user base. So, Siddharth, you want to get into this?
Yeah, sure. So let's start with where I come from and how did I land here in the first place. So very briefly, got introduced to design very early on. I was in the 10th standard, and back then I got into programming. So my introduction to design and building apps and websites was from
Yo,
programming.
give me one sec. Hold
And
on. Hold on, Sid. I'm seeing in the chats that people can't hear you.
okay,
So we gotta like troubleshoot this first. Hold on. One second. What could it be? What could the reason be? So Instagram, they're saying it's fine, mostly fine. Here, I think it might be with
I'll
my.
just try to restart my mic. This one
One
seems to be
second.
working fine. Is it better now?
One second. Dude, okay. I think we might have to take a break from the stream. We might have to pause this. Just give me 1 second though. People in the chat, please let me know if things are, if they get fixed. I think what I need to do in OBS is to figure out an audio input, which is for myself, it's working. But for Siddharth, it's not picking up the um, computer's input.
Sound.
Does anybody know how to do this?
Yeah, but it's possible that it's on my side, but I think he's able to hear me. So
Are people in the chat able to hear Siddharth now? Can you please let me know?
yeah, that would be saying something.
Siddharth, can you keep talking?
20 tech issues. 20 tech issues.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you go live.
Okay, guys, so we're gonna be right back. We're gonna be back in about, I would say, maybe 15 to 20 minutes while we troubleshoot this. So, sorry about the delay. We'll see you in some time. Bye bye.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Here we are. This is Abhinav here. We just started a stream 30 minutes ago and then we stopped it because it wasn't working. But now we're going to give that another go. We're going to try that one more time. What's up, everybody? We're back on stream. Hopefully, this time it should go as planned. If not, then we have some trouble.
What's up? I hope you can hear me now.
Yeah, man, I can. And I hope people on stream can hear. So let me now jump in. Um,
Can you folks hear me on the stream?
I'm just going to ask people in the stream if they can hear.
Yeah. All right. I think one or two confirmations. Yes, they can hear. Yes.
Awesome, bro. Awesome.
Let's start.
This thing is about to
It's
go
finally
down.
working.
Damn.
It was a close call. All right. We can get started then.
Yeah, man. So everybody joining in, hello, welcome to the stream. Apologies for the delay. There's a lot of tech involved in setting up a stream like this. Multiple audio sources, multiple video sources. Luckily, we have it all figured out now. Thanks a lot to Dhananjay on the Telegram group for helping out. We are now going to get started. So in this stream, what we want to talk about, is Sidharth's experience in design, his story so far, what led him up to this point. We're gonna talk about that in a little bit, and then the bulk of this conversation is gonna be around a real life case study from Headout, where Sidharth's gonna share his screen. He's gonna walk you all through Figma files, through documentation, through their process. Hopefully, there's a lot of learning involved, and with that, Sidharth, let's get started.
All right. So welcome, folks. We're gonna get started. I'm just gonna give you a quick intro of how I landed here. My intro to design was with programming. I started building websites and some games, messing around with code. Eventually realized thinking about what goes on the screen and how people think about it, how it affects the user, made more was far more interesting to me than programming. I mean, I still love programming, but design was something that spoke to me a lot more. And then later started on freelancing, then joined some startups, tried some of my own, ran a design agency in between, and then realized that working with startups, joining startups with very specific kind of design problems and market problems is and scaling them from a certain level to another level is what I enjoy the most. So that's where I landed with Instamojo, where I was part of the founding team. Was there for 6 years, and now part of Headout. Here we are solving. We sell experiences across the world. Like if you go to Paris, you go to Eiffel Tower, or you go to Dubai, you go to Burj Khalifa. Most likely, you'll be purchasing your entry tickets through Headout. So that's what our business is, just to give you a brief idea. At Headout, I handle design team and the product team. I mean, there's not a big product team. Design team is also quite small. The core team is just like what 4 people, including me. So yeah, so that's what that's about what the intro I thought of that I will give. If you have any specific questions, let me know. We'll take them up. So before let's get started with the the case study. So just to give you a brief background, both the projects that I'm going to talk about are still work in progress, but one a design team has already finished working on, and engineering is working on it at the moment. So you will get to see a roughly a finished state of product, and the other one is completely in the middle of the works. So you will see how it looks like when we are in the middle of iterations, still figuring out stuff, and how the documentation looks like raw. So I hope that will give you a wide variety of wide range of problem statements to look at and how we think about them. So what I'm going to do is start sharing my screen so you can see better. And if I hope you're able to the audio is coming twice. I think there's some lag in the audio
Okay.
on the YouTube. I think we're getting.
Yeah. I think I have a fair idea why that might be.
Oh, got it.
Okay, I think that should solve it.
Yeah. So yeah, so as you can see, this is the homepage, and then we have these product cards. This is one of the projects we're going to talk about, and then we have first product we're going to talk about. The project we worked on is calendar, right? So if you go to a particular product page, this is what we are selling. You go to in Dubai, you can go to Ferrari World, you know, just have a fun time there, and this is the calendar that you can see, and these are the dates available, right? So and as you can see, this is all the dates gone by, and as you go in future, we have some inventory till some date and time, and afterward, which we don't have any prices, and prices change. And this one is listed in AED, which is the native currency of Dubai. So this is all well and good. This looks like a normal case. Now, let's see some of the problems, right? The moment I switch to USD in currency, you will see suddenly because of currency conversion, now you see this 31 cents coming up here. And it's barely readable. You can see that the font size is tiny. Especially older folks or people with vision problems will have a lot of trouble seeing it. And especially the contrast here on the gone by dates will be so low that you won't be able to make out anything that is going on. So these are a couple of problem statements that this calendar has. And let's explore even further. The moment we go to South Korean won, the prices go nuts because that's 93,000 won, right? So we have to do something like that, and it's not legible. I'm not sure if you're able to see on Instagram clearly, but like it's really not legible, even on like a very crystal clear Apple display. So a lot of problems. We are not able to highlight discounted dates, legibility issues, usability issues. All the dates that were unavailable and sold out look the same, and that was these are like a bunch of problems that we were facing with calendar. So let's see what that looks like. How did we solve them? So here is our Figma file, and you can see this one is specifically for mobile, calendar mobile. And we start with in this version we directly go to the solution. I'll show you in the other one how we document problem statements and how we document other detailed stuff where the research is more hardcore. Here the problem statements were fairly clear. The problem was more in designing the pieces and coming to these decisions. These are the final decisions. I'll make it bigger so folks on YouTube can see it even better. So the first thing we did is we're describing here construction of this date element, because if you look at a calendar, it consists of a date, that's one of the units, and a price, and then there is a header for the. Let's look at one calendar and talk about that there. This is a date unit. This is a single unit. You can see the number, the day, and the price, and you can see Sunday, Monday, and the week, and you can see the month of the year, and these are all the bits, all the elements that make up this pattern, make up this component. So we start by describing, okay, we are starting with the basic unit of a date, and this is how it's going to work. And now we go to the various states. And I think Abhinav in the group was also talking about how you can't just design this one calendar and be done with it. This is how we explore states. So this is the normal state. If the date is particularly discounted, it will be highlighted this way. If it's not applicable, then it will come like that. And if it's sold out, it'll come like that. Now, what's the difference between these two? Sold out means the date we had the inventory. It's actually available. It was available, but now we are sold out. But a not applicable date means it wasn't even available. It wasn't even an option.
Could you zoom in
to
even
begin with.
further?
Yeah. So as you can see here, these are all the states that we have. I'll wait so it syncs up and gets a nice crisp frame there on YouTube. So you can see on hover, this is what we wanted to do, and this is what we wanted to do. When it's discounted and there's no currency. So we were also exploring option of removing currency when you switch to a particular currency, because we saw a lot of websites in particular regions were using that. And this was alternate sold out when we wanted to show the date, and these are both available to us. And then finally, how do we deal with a really big gas currency? Because it's in 93,000, it's still fine. The moment goes 1 million won, the million denomination and all those things start to creep up. So we have to explore all these states. Now, just to figure out all these states took us like a good amount of time, that all these cases exist, right? That is where a lot of thinking and talking to stakeholder goes into. And now we come to so we have defined our date unit. Now we can start defining solving a bunch of other problems. This is what we decided, that how do we highlight? Now, one of the first questions is, how do you decide which state a particular date will be in, right? Normal, okay, all of them are normal, but how do you decide which one is discounted, right? Now you could say easy, whichever, all the prices available on the screen, visible on the screen, just whichever is the lowest number, they just start highlighting those. But that doesn't work, right? Because the moment you scroll, the number of dates visible on your mobile screen or desktop will change. On desktop, actually, it's easier. If you see here, I can guarantee that these 2 months are the only parts that are visible in a given day. So when I move next, only it comes in sets of 2 months. But on mobile, this is a scrolling calendar, right? So it doesn't work out that well at all. So that logic doesn't work, and that took us the longest while to figure out like what is an alternate logic. So this is what we decided, that we take in on desktop, we can take those 2 months and decide whichever is the below the median price available during that time will be the discounted dates. So if you go to next 2 months, it's completely possible that in first screen you saw $35 as discounted, and in the next screen you will see $100 as discounted, because in those 2 months that was the lowest price, right? So this is one trade-off we made, and one trade-off was discussed a whole bunch of times, because this has a lot of business repercussions, right? And a lot of times partners are very our partners will be very cautious about how they want to display dates, etc., or discounts, because it affects their brand. Second thing we did, if you even if you go today, you will see that some things are in like US dollars is in dollars, the dollar sign, but the Australian dollar is written as AUD, or Canadian dollar is written as CAD. So either we use the currency symbol, which is the United States dollar symbol, the S with a cut sign, or we use or we use write USD. So we decided to stick with currency symbol. That was one of the other changes. And the last piece that I want to talk about is that we want to round them up. If you remember, we could see $80.31. Now that takes a lot of space because you're writing like 999 dollars 99 cents. That's 1 2 3 4 5 characters, right? And we did not have space for that many characters, so we decided to always round up. So what is rounding? Rounding is when you go to the nearest decimal place. But there are three kind of rounding you can do. You can always do round down, which means that no matter if you even if you have $9.99, it will round down to $9. Or you can always round up, which means even if it's $9.01, it will show you $10. Or you can keep a middle rounding where from 1 to 5 it rounds down, from 6 to 10 it rounds sorry, from 6 to 9 it rounds up. So you can but we decided to go with rounding up. This is another
Yo, Sidharth, can we pause for a sec? Let's just restart our
yeah,
Instagram live stream. It's
yeah,
just stopped.
all right.
What's up, everybody? It's hard maintaining two streams, man.
Yeah, internet even today has only so much bandwidth.
Now I know why Joe Rogan has Jamie sitting just for monitoring streams. Like, you need this shit. You need somebody around. All right, let's continue.
Yeah. All right. Sorry for that. Internet is difficult. Technology is still difficult. So we're talking about rounding up and rounding down. Right now, what consequences does that have? Think about it. Like if I'm selling something to you for $999, right? That's 999. You will think about that price point very differently than if I said $1,000, right? That's why I mean price anchoring is a big thing that people do. And if you watch some of the old videos of Steve Jobs talking about Apple's pricing, and even in his biography, he talks about how the $999 had just a better psychological impact. So some of the vendors carefully, price their stuff around those pricing points, and during currency translation, this it can really take a toll. So the idea was if we always round up, that means the moment you reach the final checkout page and see the actual price, the price will always be lower than what you saw on the product page, which means the chances of you getting dropped off because suddenly you see that price is not what you saw it was are less. You will if we did the other way around where the price was higher or completely different than what you was shown on the product page, you will lose trust, and trust is one of the most important factor for conversion, so especially in our business. So this was again a very important discussion. This took us like easily 2 3 weeks of time to discuss with all stakeholders the consequences of what does this mean for our business, right? So rounding up was another decision. So now this is how we constructed our calendars. So I'm going to come to this chart later on, but first we're going to see how the calendar layout functions. So this is how we're going to combine layout, right? That there is a month calendar and there's a 7-day calendar that we're going to use. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So these are all the components coming together, right? And this one especially for mobile. So this is how our 7-day calendar would look like, just to strip, right? And this is the states of the components itself. So first we saw states of individual elements that go into making the component. Now you can see the states of the component, right? What happens in a normal state? This is just how the calendar will look like. There'll be some unapplicable dates, some sold out dates, and you will have some discounted dates. And then there'll be some partial months because if September is almost over, This is how it's going to look like. Currently, if you see, even if you go today live on Headout, we show you the entire month, even if you're on the last day of the month, which is such a waste of space and a cognitive. It's just additional cognitive load. You have to click and go next for no good reason. So this was a solution to that. That will show partial months. This is how it looks without currency, right? When the prices are really high, the currency would be summarized. We assume that you know the currency already because that's how their e-commerce websites have been working. And upcoming dates, that earlier dates are not available. So let's say this was October 2020, right? So this, we don't have any dates till October 2020. So in that case, this is what we'll say, that boss, we do not have earlier dates, and this is what you need to start with, right? And when we have only limited dates available, this is how we wanted to show it. And these are the two parts that we saw of just fixing, redesigning the calendar and fixing all these problems of legibility, of colors, of highlighting discounted dates, of showing partial date calendars. So this was all the improvements that went into it. The problem statements were fairly clear when we started. And this is the piece I think if you've been following me on Instagram, I spoke about, and on Twitter, that I've never spoken about this particular piece before. I'm just going to zoom in and let it rest so it can sync on YouTube. Yeah, so I'm not sure if you can see live if there's a lag, but this is what we call a user interaction and state map. Been trying different names, nothing has stuck. So if you have a better name, please let me know. So what it is a swim lane diagram. What a swim lane diagram is nothing but you create. It's a flowchart diagram. So if you study flowchart diagrams, this will be very easy. This is a starting point. These are decision points, the triangles. And what we do here in swim lane is we divide it in lanes. So a certain kind of who's supposed to do what. So here we are describing relationship between a user and the interface and the system, right? So user will do actions, interface will give feedback, will have signifiers, will respond, and the system will do some processing, right? So now we are going to discuss the entire logic of how we discuss, like, how do we describe all these states that we spoke about? When does it switch to discounted? When does it decide it's sold out? This is how we describe it to our engineers and share it with them. Okay, so user opens a full calendar, right? So check the calendar logic, the layout logic, which is the next sheet. We'll go to that next after this. Now, first thing we check for each date, is it available? If it's available, we directly go to this loop. If it's not available, first we check, is it not applicable or is it sold out? Right? So if it's not applicable, go to not applicable. If it's sold out, it goes sold out. Now, the definition of this is a criteria for backend, right? So that's why it's not described in detail here. It's not a UI logic per se. This is a business logic, right? Here we're describing the UI logic of the system. So if the date is available, then we go here, right? Then we say if the price, the character count of the price is more than 6 characters, right? Then do this. Then you can then you ask another question, that is it discounted? Then show discounted or show normal state, right? If it is not up to 6 character, which means it's greater than 6 characters. So this is the logic that we go with, right? And you can see this logic again and again coming back, that if discounted has to be checked at every level. But what you see here changing is if the character count is too much, then we show the no currency version. And if it is below 6 characters, then we show the currency, right? And this is again described here, like we show the currency or we do not show the currency based on the number of characters, right? And that character is described there. We also have logic around font sizes at times and bunch of other stuff. So this is another one for the whole calendar. So if you see this calendar, this is how we describe the various logic on this, that the moment user opens a full calendar, see if up to 7 dates are available per month, next 3 months, right? This is quite a jumbled up logic. Let me try that again. If there are 7 dates available per month, which means 7 in each month for the next 3 months, then show the 7-day calendar only for up to 7 dates, right? Uh, Here, if the dates are available for after a few months, then show upcoming month calendar. And if the current date is beyond the first week, then show the truncated, hide the old dates, as you can see. And when is it decided that if start doing this at weekly level? So the hiding of, so if you go back to this version of the calendar, the partial view, right here, the partial view has to happen in blocks of each week, individual weeks, right? It can't happen, let's say, the moment you come to 24th, we cannot hide 22 and 23. That will be visible till the week finishes. So when this entire week finishes, it'll vanish, right? So that is what this small piece of logic here describes, right? This small piece of logic here. So this is how we communicate all of these pieces to our engineers, and this is how we discuss edge cases, and this is part of our documentation. So if you remember our again pricing logic, this is another way to describe that same pricing logic, that calculate based on average, median, sorry, average of the visible dates, average or median. We had to decide it. In the end, it was decided that we would go with average. Both have different, completely different concepts, average or median. Who knew that if you were in design, you will have to study mathematics and stats? But you have to do that. So in the end, this is what it look, this final version looks like. And if I can show you the prototype, this is for the calendar developers. These are all the versions, different versions that we have shared with them, right? So this is the final outcome of how this will work on mobile phone. Let me see if I can play the prototype, because Figma was having some issues earlier. So you can get a feel of what this may work like for on mobile.
So Mayank in the chat mentioned, can you share a view only Figma link? I think that's gonna send too many people to your file. So Mayank, I don't think we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, these are like core file. There's a lot of stuff in there which currently I won't be able to share. But what I can do is create a separate file for you folks, and probably share the link at the end of the screen. I mean, at the end of the stream, so it's you can take a look, or maybe I'll write a blog post on this. You can, so I can share like for popular apps like WhatsApp and all what they will do. So this is what's happening here. This is simple how calendar will function, and this is it. And this itself, like, what did you design here? It's just like one screen. One might look at it and say, but the amount of thinking that went behind this one simple screen, and the amount of logic we had to think through, the amount of situations you have to think about, is intense, because each of those decisions have drastic business consequences, right? So remember, if we spoke about that currency will be hidden. So this is how the currency will be shown. I don't know if you can see. I'll zoom into the lower part. This here you will see it in a fixed place. That currency is visible. So that's calendar, and there's a that's a mobile version. We also had desktop version, which has slightly different logic, like I explained, because we know that at any given moment, only 2 months are visible, right? So that's beneficial for us. So we'll not go to the date logic again, but this is the construction logic, right? Again, how do we construct these elements? And there's an interesting element that appears which we've not seen before, which is this called list calendar, right? What this is we'll see what this is. So let's say a new scenario appears that only there's a certain show that only happens 7 times in an entire year, or 10, 15 times in an entire year. Now, do we really want to show full number of months for that sort of behavior? Not really. So this is where we came up with this list calendar. As you can see, that if there are only X number of dates available, show this calendar instead. So I'll hold on here for a while, so the stream has some time to catch up and give a clearer view of this. As you can see, this date unit is very different, but it has a very similar function. It can show you the price, it can show you the date, it can highlight sold out, inapplicable, or all the dates that are not here. And
So one question I
somebody's
have for
asking,
you, Sidharth, from the stream,
yeah.
is the is when you were designing this, the process, how many people were involved for thinking out these scenarios? Like, would you typically work with product managers and developers, and did this change across, through the state of the project?
For sure. I think when you start out, it's typically a product person and one designer. And as you start to explore and audit the problem statements, you start to involve more and more people because to figure out how current logic works behind the scenes on the calendar, we had to speak to engineers. Then the moment we were coming to some decisions, we had to speak to business folks. So the core decision maker remain a pairing of, let's say, a product manager, or let's say me and another designer, or engineer or another designer. So it's just usually a pairing. But as the project moves forward, there are more and more people involved. Uh, in calendar, this is a fairly smallish project, so it was practically done alone by Nitish, with of course help from engineering and a little bit of product help to scope out, because again it takes a village to do build a calendar, because again there's so many nuances in there. Right. So there's a lot of folks involved, but yeah, this was done by Nitish Yadav. You can find him on Instagram at Nitish Yadav. So specifically because this is where we started exploring, figuring out our branding issues as well. Because this font, this is graphic by the way, doesn't it works in certain sizes, but in many places it was failing us. That's another story for another day. But yeah, you keep discovering more and more issues as you keep, the project never really finishes. Sorry to digress a little, but yeah, is there anything else we missed from the live stream? Any questions?
Can you show? So now we've had a look at these calendar components. Can we see how this would finally look like on the screen? So like for list versus the calendar view.
Yeah, I think I have some iteration of that where we tested it out. There you go. So these are just actual, again, this is not live. This is still being worked on. So there you go. So that's how it will open up, right? And in the actual on the actual product page. I'll zoom in and hold for a bit so you can see. And let's say the list view, how will that look like? I hope I have the screen for it. There's the list view. That's how a list view would look like. Right. So you can see it's fairly compact. We are able to communicate the same amount of information without you clicking anywhere. This is just one step. There are a bunch of problem statements that we did not even explore yet. For example, there are special days, there are special holiday seasons where the traffic is higher. We want to be able to show that this is a really busy day, or we want to show that likely to sell out dates, that sure, we have inventory on this one, but it's going to sell out very soon. So there are a whole lot of problem statements we did not even yet address, right? That is where the iterative process comes in. First, we will push this out, and then we will know whether this is working or not, and is this the direction we want to keep moving in. And that is part of the agile process as well, and iterative process in design, that not all problem statements make it to till the end. And figuring out which problem statement to solve first, again, requires you to speak with a lot of business folks. And at times it comes down to feasibility, which comes up, remember we were speaking about how to calculate discounted date. Now the engineers have to build it, right? Now, let's say we're talking about each day has 100 slots, and you have inventory for next 6 months. So that's 6 into 100 into 30. That number of dates they'll have to compute over to give you whether a date is discounted or not. So that's where we have to decide limits, and how much inventory we will actually show. At times it may come because of this calendar design, and the consequence may be that you will see less inventory on mobile because of that expensive calculation than you'd see on desktop because of that easier calculation done in a window of 2 months at a time. So there are a whole bunch of business consideration which comes from design, and that is why we often keep talking about designers need to understand business. Otherwise, how does rounding up, rounding down make a difference? Why is it important? And how do you decide which day is actually discounted? And what will be the psychological impact of that on the customer is extremely important, right? These are the pieces we miss out. Another interesting thing that happened in this calendar thing was we created these odd looking versions where only certain dates were visible, right? So these iterations were actually design was ready for them. These were very weird calendars which we've never seen, which we've never interacted with before, that we were thinking of trying out. Okay, my Figma is also lagging, so I'll hold it here. Yeah. So, however, interesting thing happened. There are about such six, seven such states. If I go back to the documentation, you can see these states in a better format, hopefully. Yeah. So these are, as you can see, there's a big cross here on Figma as well on the documentation, because these were rejected. Now, the reason these were rejected are not because the design is bad. We really wanted to try these unique and kind of calendars and see what happens. Another piece of debate was like, if you can see, this is non-standard structure. Saturday, Monday, Friday. This was very odd. This was one of the feedback was when we tested with just about anybody, people did not read what actual dates were and were super confused. So even if we fix that.
Okay, let me check. One sec. Roughly, nothing has changed. Let me just, guys. If audio comes up suddenly, let me know. Okay, hold on. Now I can see the audio is down, although I do not know why. One sec. Let me just reset the audio. Yeah, I think that should work.
Okay, it's back. Somebody said it's back.
Okay, let's just wait for a few seconds and we'll know for sure.
Yeah. I can hear if I'm not wrong, I can see my levels on your audio. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
let's go. Let's
Yes.
go. Yes.
All right. So coming back to, so you can see the amount of iterations we did, right? This doesn't work, that doesn't work, and we haven't documented all the reasons. I'll come to how we document this. And somebody asked a very interesting question: is there a related PRD to this? I will come to that. In fact, right now, of how this kind of change is communicated. In fact, I prepared like a quick this thing. I don't know if I can, if it's visible, or if I can zoom
It
in.
is. It is. I can.
Okay. So the idea is first you break it down, right, into chunks. For example, here we could break it down into chunks. For first thing, you update the spacing, the color, the font without changing anything, and the sizes, just the visual revamp. Then you implement the roundup logic, and then you implement the sold out logic, right? So this is how a product manager would break it down, or an engineering manager would break it down into parts that are shippable. And then we would write something like a user story. I'll show you what a user story looks like. A user story is nothing but a shippable piece of content. So this is shippable piece of change. Typically, hopefully, a measurable unit of change as well, which you can specifically measure that this and test, right? So this is how a user story is written. Typically, we describe as a customer using Headout's website on desktop. I should be able to do X, Y, Z because X, Y, Z, right? And the acceptance criteria. I'll zoom in on my uh, Chrome so you can see better. So acceptance criteria is that this system shall do all these things for this story to be closed, for this story to pass. So show calendar input, which is already there. If it's up to 10 days, show list calendar. If it's show max of 2 months, right? And then all the edge cases describe that single month should be shown as this, two running months without break should be shown as this, and non-functional requirement is preload the currency symbol, because currently we do have this issue that currency symbol sometimes takes longer to load. It's a separate call. So the one of the non-functional requirements is for performance is that they will need to preload this before the user even opens the calendar. So the moment you change the currency or load the page, the currency symbol should load right there. So this is how a typical user story is written. This particular calendar was about 15 user stories, which are typically each of the user stories should be doable in a month. In a sprint. So that is how we look at user stories. Anything that goes beyond a sprint, which is roughly for 2 weeks for us, will have to be broken down into further user stories, right? So this is where product manager typically will get into deeper discussion with the engineering side, which happens to be me in this case. So I was the one doing these discussions, and that is where we decide, okay, this piece of the logic cannot be implemented, and that is about the time where those special experimental calendar layouts got dropped off. Right, it hurts as a designer when you work on something a lot and it gets dropped off. So coming to second project, is it a good time to go to second project?
Yeah, so Siddharth, once before we get into it, one quick question for you
Yeah.
guys. Can you tell me what is the strength of your team right now? So you've got designers, product managers, and developers. Roughly,
Right.
what size is each team at?
So we have about 25-ish engineers. We have 4 full-time designers, including me, and there are about 4 interns. And out of those, 2 are working with product right now, with product design, and helping us out in visual communication. And the other interns are around creatives, which is mostly around image processing, because we have a lot of image and video work happening all the
Okay.
time. And product manager, I'm literally the first product manager in the company. So there's literally just one kind of product manager at this point. So I'm doubling up as a product person and design person at Headout. So yeah, that's roughly the strength of the team. So there are 25 engineers, 4 designers plus 4 interns. So that's roughly 8 folks. And then we have half PM. So if you count me, half there. So yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Cool. Nice. Sounds good. The calendar project, what would you say the timeline was? Now I understand it's an agile project, so there aren't like fixed timelines. You try to break it into smaller chunks. But if you can give some
Right.
idea of what the timeline was.
The rough timeline for us on the design side or the engineering side, or both?
I would say let's talk about design side.
Design side, this took us about 1.5 months. So that's
Okay.
about 6 weeks.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that took us about 6 weeks, and majority of again it went into scoping it, right, understanding the scope of it, versus something like product cards, which has been going on since past 3 months, right, because it's a far complex problem statement. It's a far bigger problem statement. So it really depends on the nature, the kind of problem, and how many problems a given designer or team is working on as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds
So
good.
that's
I
about it.
think we can dive into the product cards project.
Yep. And as you can see here, first I'll draw your attention to the pages on Figma. So the first one is called audit, right? The second is framework, which is problems, framework, options. I don't know if you saw the video I shared on the Telegram group yesterday about design framework. So we'll see another example of framework here. Then there's master component sheet, the like we saw earlier, and there's a prototype sheet, iteration, and extra not usable, right? So product cards, and these are the problems we start with, right? Why are we redesigning? These are the problems. That first, there's consistency issue, like there are too many variety of cards. I'll show you in just in a second. There are readability issues, there are scanning problems, there's just too much information all over the place. The cards on app versus desktop versus mobile don't match. So I'll just show you an example of that. Let's say these are all the product cards. right? As you can, if I keep scrolling, you will see something. You're likely to. Here you go. There's a price here. There's a discount here. So discount 48% off is here, but price is here, but cashback is over here, right? So the information is all over the place. There's readability issue. Like you can barely read that, right? You can barely read ski Dubai tickets. That's just terrible typesetting. The color contrast ratio does not pass the test. None of these contrast ratio pass the contrast ratio test. Not this, not this, not this, not this, right? So it's usability wise, it sucks, and it does not have the kind of information we require. So for example, if I do Disneyland, right? Let's just search for that. And this is another card. Now, this one says Paris here, but if you were looking for something that does not have this in title, what if you wanted to highlight city here or something else, the country here, right? The distinction between this and this is not very unique, right? The only part you can see is price is different and this is different. What is the real difference? And if I put cashback here, it will start interfering with this authorized label. So this is just not the best, most scalable, or the most robust way to design this system. This clearly is not a design system. This is just an iteration trying to stretch itself to all the states possible, which it was not designed for, right? So it just bad scaling problems, right? And if you look at it, I will show you another piece where this icon wasn't working too great for us. Like it just interferes.
Which icon
The
is that?
That's bookmark icon, the heart icon.
Okay, okay.
So it's the biggest reason is it's just white. So I right now I don't have an example, but if the image is completely white, you can't even see it.
Yeah.
Right? You can imagine like right here.
I guess
You
the ones
can
with the
barely
sky
see
on
that.
them are also like it's pretty light, the contrast.
Yeah, so it just so many usability issues that this had to be redone, right? And this is what our customers interact with a lot, right? This is the primary way of navigating through what you really want to buy on Headout. So this is what we started with, and the first step we do here, and this is what you did not see in calendar, which you will see much more detail here because this is a massive project, right? First we just audit and document what do we have today, right? What are all the kinds of product cards we have today? And these are all the kind of product cards we have today for activities, for events, for shows. Some of them look like
Sidharth,
this.
give me 1 sec. My
Yeah.
live stream went down. And
All right.
check out the error message. It says the temperature of the phone is too high because the live stream was on. It's really given me a temperature warning.
Do you have like a
Okay,
cover
hold
on?
1 sec.
You have a phone cover on?
I guess what we can do, since the temperature is bad, is you can actually just continue. This will be up in a bit. Yeah.
Okay. Also, all right. So this is what you can see here. That one of the Broadway show for Aladdin has Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and a price. This one does not have that. This one has that. So all this we document all these types, right? And this is all the card styles that we use today. There's horizontal scrollable cards like this, which come partial, so you can scroll them. There's full width card, which comes edge to edge, and there are 2 column cards, so you can make a grid out of it and keep scrolling. So swipe, scroll, right? And this is where we use them. So the audit is just about understanding this is what happens when you don't document when you're designing, right? So somebody has to come and do an audit and document it for you in retrospect, hoping to reverse engineer what your thinking process was. And this is how we use them, right? There are 2 main purposes cards are used for. One is search, which is a significantly different behavior than browsing. Now, the reason I say that is when you're searching, let's say you search the Lion King, you're looking for a very particular item which either matches your criteria or doesn't. While when you're browsing, you are not necessarily looking for one particular thing. It may be you're just seeing what is there in Paris to begin with, right? So there are 2 different use cases, completely 2 different use cases, and this is what we call an audit report. And there can be different kinds of audits. There's a vastly different audit report I had shared on one of my articles earlier. You can check it out on Medium. So now this is documentation of just the problem statements, right? These are the rough journey maps of to understand in detail what happens, and these are backed by data. that this is what most of our customers were doing. They would either land through Google Ad, and then they will navigate through cards, land on a product page, and click on calendar, date, and time, and again come back to navigation cards. This is just a loop that kept happening, right? Search people either searched again or decided to click on a card. That was very different behavior. So we discover all these behaviors that are there and draw them out in a rough user journey map. And this is the part where it really starts, right? This is all the pieces of information that goes into a product card today, right? And we have a use case sheet where all this is listed even in greater details. What are the formats? What are the maximum size, minimum size constraints for title, for variant? So you can see all these pieces going can or do go today into making a product card. Let's take an example. There's obviously title, there's image, there may be a video, there may be multiple images, there's category, subcategory, area, location, country, description, sale price, original price, discount percentage, discount expiring in, special discount, cashback, free cancellation, bestseller. I can go on. Like this is a massive, massive list, right? So yeah, this is where we document our problems. Just the what are we dealing with? What are the constraints we are dealing with? So far, we have documented. What are the intentions we are dealing with? What is the data we are dealing with? What is the behavior we are dealing with?
Yeah.
And what is the pieces of information we are dealing with? Right now, we start to solve the problem, and now here you see one of the first decisions we did in the solution was frameless cards. Now I'll come to in a bit that why did we decide to go with frameless cards. But first thing we do is take each of those card elements and start iterating that what all states they exist in. Now you can see a very similar pattern here, that we take the elements first, and elements are derived right out of information architecture. What are the pieces of information that go in there? And we iterate the hell out of the elements first, because we want to know the maximum use cases that you will miss out are in these details. You don't even know what you're attempting to do in a layout before you understand all that happens here, right? So for example, for price, this is the easiest to understand because this is relevant to almost all e-commerce. These are all the states, right? You can have both cashback and discount. You can have just discount, no discount. uh, there are two cases of no discount, that there's a range that it's starting from 190 pounds or it's just 190 pounds flat. There's a case where discount is expiring in certain amount of time. And then you have group pricing, right, where we can highlight for group. So yeah, these are all the pieces we start exploring. And then there's something called boosters. So if you saw I'm not sure if you noticed here, sometimes we do highlight we want to highlight things like this is the amazing combo, there's newly arrived right here, if you can see. So we want to highlight certain we sometimes highlight these pieces, right, like bestsellers, etc. So we wanted to be able to do that. So those are boosters. We'll come to that in a bit. And this is how our iteration starts, right? The next we realize the moment that we cannot combine all these elements in one standard way. There has to be multiple ways, multiple kind of cards for different purposes. The first was obviously, like we said, the search behavior is very, very different. So search cards are the first thing we separated out. Then standard cards, and then something called full size cards. Full size cards are often used to they really go edge to edge even on desktop at times. The idea for full size card is to highlight something or to give you a scrollable view like this right here. The usage is described right next to it, that how these are used. Search will roughly look like this, right, in usage. Standard will look like this. A full width will look like this on mobile. And all our designs consideration are mobile first. And this is an interesting one which we do not have right now, which is comparison card, because we saw while auditing that there were new use cases emerging where people, where our own staff wanted to list 2-3 products right next to each other, like Amazon does, so you can compare them, right? So this is where that comparison card comes from, and this is how it would be implemented, should be implemented on mobile phone, right? This is how the layout would be, and you could ideally keep scrolling, right? So this is not a very detailed wireframe. This is what we call lo-fi wireframe. Now the lo-fi wireframe, people just put crosses and corners and don't write anything. That's not the meaning of lo-fi wireframe. Lo-fi wireframe means that you do not answer all questions, but you give a general direction to the solution. That's the meaning of lo-fi wireframe. So if you ask me, is this the final font size of all of these items? No, that is not the question that this wireframe is answering. It's saying that roughly this is how we intend to use comparison cards going forward, right? So yep, and that's where we start getting into details that again, there's a whole lot of documentation on what details are there. I'm going to pick one or two of them to really talk about what's happening here. One of the interesting, now coming to the cardless, frameless cards. Now you can see here why we wanted to go with frameless cards. If we had frame around this card, you will have one line here, you'll have one line here, one line here. You can see a, a zigzag is going to start happening if we put a border around these cards. I'm not sure if you're able to see it, but this is what's going to happen. And if we, let's say, make them all equal heights, there's going to be weird white space in each card, right? Because of this asymmetry in the kind of information we want to display is the reason we went with the frameless card, right? That was the biggest decision to go. Second thing we decided was that this kind of carousel and gallery will be possible only on full-sized cards. We did not want to do it on small or standard cards. If you have a lot of screen space, then we will give you a gallery and maybe even a video in the product card itself. And then these are special cards called descriptive cards where we have to describe even more items. These are for very special, very specific kind of attractions and sub brands we have. So this is another iteration we wanted to do. We wanted to try out. And these are all just the documentation of all the solutions. The moment we figure something, we keep coming back to document here, right? And these are all the weird cases. Let's take a weird case where the category is longer than the title, right? It's a really, really weird case, right? Another case is where the title and the category is same. That happens. Why that happens? Because you have a category called Disneyland, and there's literally a product called Disneyland. But there are other things in Disneyland because Disneyland plus this, Disneyland plus pickup. So yeah, there's tons of use cases. Another one is we have when we have two boosters, right? In the same place. There's bestseller and 48 views in the last hour. So these are all the edge cases that we have. And yeah, and these are all the layout considerations that we wanted to do. So this is all the solution, this is all the framework that you can see. This is not done in one day. We keep iterating and keep coming back and adding to the framework here. What I really would want to show you is the prototype sheet, the iteration sheet, which is what the final outcome today as we stand looks like, right? Today where we are at. And no one has seen this outside the company so far. So you folks are literally the first one to see it outside the team. In fact, many people in the company have not seen this design. So this is one of our consideration, and I'll talk about what is happening here and why did it take to even arrive at this. I think this is a much more, I have to find a recent version of this. 1 second. Is this the one? I may be on the wrong sheet. Oh no, that was the right one. Okay, yeah. So this is roughly, these are all the considerations we are currently working on. I'm not sure if you can see. So I'll zoom in and talk about some of the aspects of this particular design. Why did it take so long, right? And here's what we're planning to do. That I don't think this is the final one as well. Yeah, this is the closest to the final one. One of the first thing we did was visual grouping. As you can see here, there's a group of pricing where the discount etc comes. This is I don't think I'm able to find the final version, but this is pretty close to the final version we have. Oh,
Hey,
I think I
Sidharth,
did
quick
find
break.
the yeah.
I just ended the YouTube Telegram live stream, so I'm going to
Mhm.
give you a call on Telegram. You can just answer that, and we'll just continue. We'll continue
All
just on
right.
YouTube.
Are you able to hear me?
Hey man, let's continue. Let's go.
All right. So yeah, so I was saying these are all the iterations currently we are going through, and I'm trying to still. I just had it in the morning. I think I've lost that one completely. These, as you can see, these are all the. This is where we are iterating visually, right? As you can see, this is a very different kind of visual iteration where we went extreme in one direction. Then we realized no, this is not at all where we want to go. This is not the kind of feel, look and feel we are going for. Then and all of this happened in a whole series of meetings. I'm going to show you how we document those meetings how we document what we decided and why we decided a particular thing. So this is the closest to the actual one that we're gonna be using. Where again, I don't think there's a see all option. I think I'm at the wrong place in the file. Definitely. Figma file browsing is this is how messy work in progress files can be. Really messy that trying to find the right file can take like a. And Murari has been working on this, so again, this is another reason
Yeah,
I'm not very familiar
I
with.
see him. I see him in the live chat.
Oh, he's already replying. Okay. Go to the second last page. All right. Ah, right. I was on the wrong page. I was on the wrong page. There we go. This is the latest one. Yes. Finally, I can talk about the final decision we made. So you can see there's a bunch of stuff going on, right? The first thing we did was just visually group the elements, the rating, the title, and the pre-title together. There's a bestseller thing up there you can see, and we really wanted to use emojis and try out how emojis may look like. And then there is highlight, what we call a booster, which is usually used to drive scarcity, that there's a discount running out, there's 7 seats left, or just to tell you the next available date. This is another piece. You can see, like, for example, it will say starts from September 20th, right? It's upcoming, for example. How many people gave it a rating? What is the system of this now? Let's say only one person gave a rating. Do you really want to show one person giving a rating? What is the minimum number of people that should be shown here after rating? Now, this is a simple logic that one has to start thinking about, and it becomes a whole new discussion. Just this one piece of information, how many people is it appropriate to start showing rating from? You can do tests, you can go back to theory, you can study that, you can go back to your historical examples or study other people what they have done, which is all part of the research and figuring out what is the right answer. Another thing you can see is pricing logic here. This all pricing related things are together. If there was a discount, it will come right here on this piece. There's no discount case. And so now just this simple thing, right? You can see bestseller and trending here. Now these are not the only things that may go here, right? One of the things I wanted to show you was, let me see if I can find that. The two important things that surprisingly took us longer than it should. One was the logic of how these boosters are decided, and I'm just going to show you what that today looks like. And another thing was nomenclature, naming these took, like, naming things is supremely hard because you want everybody to start using that name. And if people don't use that name, then you will call it. If everybody calls it navigation bar, but you call it tab bar, it's not going to work out. So naming things is supremely hard. This is our simple idea of booster logic. You can see here that we have placements defined, that this place is called L1, L2, then this is title, this is L3 and L4. And how are these, they are the different kind of boosters we use, right? Some are what special, they can be bestseller, highest rated, trending, lowest price, super saver, special performance, authorized. These are all the kind of things, what is special about it. This is trending, this is bestseller, right? Or scarcity, which is like, it's running out, it's next available on so many, it's selling out fast, so many people bought it in last X hours. Then they're feature related. For example, this one has instant confirmation, this one has free cancellation, or they're discount related, right? So this is where they're mapped, that all what's special first go to L1 and then go to L2. And how did we decide? There's a priority logic here, which is not filled for this one because we're still debating it. But you can see it here that if X seats are left, that will take precedence always. It will always be shown on L3, which is right here. It will always come in L3. And if this is present, we don't even go looking here. But we keep looking till we find it. And let's say we don't have any scarcity, then we immediately go to features for L3. So both these groups appear only in L3, as you can see in the in the placement here. These are all where we define the placement. And discounts always go on L4, right? And when we say discount expiring in so many hours, minutes, second, when do we start the countdown? Because in some of our pop-ups today, the countdown starts at 30 days. Now 30 days, discount expiring in 30 days, like, tells me to go chill. It doesn't raise curiosity or drive scarcity. So those are the kind of things we want to test out. Those are unanswered questions. And I also spoke about naming things. So this is the name that emerged, that there are two types of cards. We'll have basic product cards and descriptive product cards, in which we have search card, standard, full-sized cards because they're not always full width. Um, and they have mobile and desktop version. On mobile, it spans full width. On desktop, it can span multiple cards. And descriptive cards can have attraction, comparison, and entertainment cards. Now, the details of this we are still working on. Why they are different is because they have variety of very different kind of things to communicate. For example, in VAT, if you're going to Paris Eiffel Tower, you want to, which is an attraction, you want to know what all is included. Versus entertainment, you want to know what seats are available. So yeah, that's an example of how product cards are being done right now. The last piece I want to really show you in all of this is the documentation of the meetings. So this is all the meetings that have happened so far. This is on Confluence, a product by Atlassian. I hate it. I hate all software by Atlassian, but it works well. I mean, everybody's there, and it syncs well when engineers have to find it. So I can link here to, let's say I was describing something in the user story, and I want to tell the engineer why did we do this decision. So I can simply link to the documentation here. So you can see the design review meeting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have had 14 meetings starting from, we'll know the date right here. There'll be a date mentioned for sure. Yeah, that was 26 December, right? And I'm most likely guessing this was more delayed, and you can see that we write what was on the whiteboard, what are the to-dos have that we took away, are we done with them or not. And as we, this is just a to, initially it looks like a to-do list, but as you go closer to the closing, you will see far more details come into these you know, little meetings. So you can see this is what we decided, this is what was discussed, and you can see the detail just keeps increasing because there's just hell lot of information to process there. The idea is to document the information. And the last piece I want to show you is the recent one where we are starting to experiment with video, right? Where instead of writing it out, we just record a video, which we share, and then you can comment, etc. And you know, we can document it there. So we have a bunch of projects that we keep documenting. All the meetings are documented in a series. So even years later, if you come back, you know, all of us are dead. Like 100 years later, you can still know what we decided and why we decided and what was the logic of. So yeah, I think that gives you a fair bit of idea on how this entire process works and what it takes. Yeah. So I think we can take up some questions we may had.
Nice, man. So I think a couple questions we can do. One big one would be, how does collaboration with developers work? That is something a few people have asked. And beyond that, we'll just take questions as they appear in the chat.
All right. So as you can see, I'll try to show you if I can go access it. No, it's going to be in a private channel. Anyway, so it starts off with feasibility discussion with the wireframe. So when you saw this framework, I'm actually going to take you there and talk about it from there. When you see this framework, at these pieces, by the time we have these options coming up, right, by the time we're discussing these elements, engineers are already started to get involved because we do not know all the boosters that are there. But engineers have it in code, right? Because it has to come from code. They have all the boosters that can ever be presented. So discussion already starts there. And as we know more things, we start asking more questions. Before we close down on design, there's one specific meeting, which is feasibility check with engineering. And at that meeting, QA and engineering both are involved. And then there is first handoff meeting. In first handoff meeting, typically we have all this documentation ready, the swim lane diagrams I showed you ready, and the user stories that I showed you. All these three things are ready by the time we come to handoff meeting. All the early meetings are just feasibility check discussions around questions we may have. Will this work? Will this not work? Do you have any other ideas around this? For example, we wanted to attach PDF for ticket thing. For the ticket one, I hope you saw the video, but we could not attach PDF, or we cannot guarantee that PDF will be attached because everybody's email client has a limit on the number of MBs, right? So those kind of discussions happen in feasibility check. Then we come to handoff where details are discussed, and then the final handoff happens once more with again QA and engineering presence once they finally pick up the project, because there is often a lag between once design finishes the particular project and is ready with it, and when engineering picks it up. In between, a lot of communication can be lost. A lot of other projects may have other repercussion and side effect on those projects which may need to be discussed. right? So that's roughly how we go about it.
Got it. Another question I have here is, how does the UX research take place at Headout?
So we are already right now. There's no solid way of UX research. We are still figuring out those pieces. Most of it is speaking. There's a bunch of customers we do have in India, so we end up speaking to them. And at least for the ticket piece, we had to speak to some of them. There's a lot of NPS data coming in. There's a lot of screen recording coming in. There's a lot of what do you call that? Prior research available that we rely on right now. On ground field research, we about to have in I think February or March is when we have planned the first sprint, where the idea is every quarter we're going to have field research going on, where there are some open-ended questions that we will have that we want to talk about. That what are the new behaviors, for example, emerging? What are new people excited, young people excited about when they go out and head out? Right, that's an open-ended statement, and we'll have very specific statement like, is our mobile ticket working for XYZ in XYZ place that we can specifically research for. So we will combine all those questions and then do one field trip to figure it, see how much we can cover. So it's a work in progress, the particular user research, hardcore research bit. Otherwise, there's ton of research paper, there is ton of data available, there's ton of users available within India, within these metro cities we can speak to. Some of them are friends of Headout, as in they know us because of startup community. Our startup folks use us. Like there's one ping I get every other week. Hey, I just tried Headout with this, and then I start a conversation, and then that becomes a whole lot of input for something else completely unrelated that had nothing to do with that conversation. So research is right now in very nascent stage, right? And especially because when we can't research all the elements. Think about it. For let's say example of ticket, right? If you're getting late and you're not able to download ticket, that kind of research, and I want to know what is going through your mind there and then. If I appear at that moment, when you're trying to figure out ticket, which is the right moment for me to do research, you're probably gonna give me a slap because I'm trying to figure out ticket, boss. I have to go somewhere. So there are places you can't research. My favorite example giver, you can't go and research in an operation theater. How are you feeling right now? How would you use this? What is going through your mind? You can't do that. There's certain places you can't go to do direct research. That's where you rely on indirect research, a lot of indirect research. For especially for product cards, we relied a lot on data. For calendar, we relied a lot on recorded user sessions. So a lot of sessions on Headout are recorded, which we can rewatch later on Full Story, and we watch tons of them, tons and tons of them. Like at least in my day to day, in a week, one day goes where I'm binge watching users do a certain thing on Headout, and after a point, you for some reason, and at a lot of time you keep watching the same thing, but you're not sure why it's happening, and then on the 10th person doing it, finally something clicks, and you're like, wait a second, is that why they're clicking here? And then it blows your mind, right? So you have to just keep observing till your own biases die out. So that's how we use you know the information coming through live recorded sessions. Watching a customer do what they do versus hearing a customer tell you what they think they do are two completely different things. What you think how you're behaving on Facebook, Instagram, etc., you're not behaving that way because there are tons of biases, right? So there's some things there are multiple methods of research we are currently in works of experimenting. There's some products which we'll have to go and do field research for, which are upcoming in the pipeline, which we cannot rely on indirect sources. So yeah, I hope that
Got it.
answers the question. We have some more
Cool.
questions on
Yeah.
the stream. You mentioned about the PRD along with the Figma file we saw. Um, I don't. I think I may have a PRD. In fact, I may have a PRD guide. Let me see if I can quickly open it up. I wrote this. That one I can later on share as well. Maybe create a copy and share with you guys. This is I wrote it for internal stakeholders because a lot of folks write PRD at Headout. It's not just product managers, and this is how a PRD is laid out for us. I think I hope you can see this.
Yep.
So the first part is this introduction, right? Here you describe what does the product do and what are the goals of the product. How will you measure it? What is the impact, right? The impact and the change, why you're doing this is the first thing. And product requirement document is only written for a major change in the product or a new product. It's not. It should not be written for features. That is how at least we think about it, because features can go in user stories, and multiple of them or single of them. Then we have user personas. These are slightly different from the UX user personas. In a sense, you're describing user categories and types of user that will interact with this product. In our case, that may be customer, operation staff, our vendor on the ground, or support staff. And what will they do it? What will they do using this product that you're describing? What will customers do with it? What will staff do with it? What will ground staff do with it? Then we come to something called a business process flow, which is again a swimlane diagram. Again, this is where I stole the diagram for interaction map. Here, instead of describing the relationship between user, interface, and system, you describe between different kinds of system. For example, user, system, staff, vendor. These four entities. For example, user books a ticket, system sends a notification to staff and to vendor, right? And this becomes even more complex. This is what we where we describe business logic, right? How we were describing UI logic earlier. This is all business logic, right? Then we come to logical data models. These are all the backend models, the data that you are capturing. How are you planning to store it? What data are you planning to store? How long are you planning to store? All those answers go here, right? This is usually done with engineering at this moment. Eventually, as you grow as a product manager, you will have a fair bit of idea of how your data is structured, and especially if you build that product from ground up. This is the main part where we describe functional requirements, right? X will change, Y will change, Z will change. For example, if we were doing the product cards, create search cards, create or show different kind of search cards for search results. Product card for search result will be one functional requirement. Then you describe all the logic that goes, a rough wireframe that goes into it, and all the links to different pieces that may be there. For example, this sheet, booster logic will be linked from this PRD when I'm writing a PRD for product cards, right? Then we describe non-functional requirements. Here are the requirements that are not functional. They are not something user will interact with, but they are still important requirement. For example, the page should load within X seconds. The video should start auto playing. We need to load this and this analytics library. We need to fire this event. So these are all something which is not the core functionality of the app or the feature or the product you're building, but these are still requirement nonetheless. Then what is the plan for the release? How will you release it? To how many people? What will you measure? Who will report to what? What are the case? What happens if we have to roll back? What are the criteria for rollback? All these kind of pieces for discovery and release are described here, and all the other reference links are again relinked from the last page. I just like to do that so people can just scroll down and easily find these. So that's a rough layout of PRD, of at least how we use PRD. And this PRD is intended to be read company wide, so it should not have too much detail. Maximum 10 pages, really maximum 10 pages. The moment you start to cross 5 pages, the number of people who will read it and join in will grow down. When you get comments, you tag specific people. Hey, engineer number this person, can we do this? Is this possible? CTO, this is an important consideration. Is this possible? Lawyer, we have to get this thing signed for this thing. So these people, you can tag specific people in the document and get things resolved. So that's how PRD works and how we use PRDs. So I hope that answers that question that kept coming on PRD.
That's a good one, man. Yeah. We have this internal PRD, this thing which is actually pretty similar to yours. But I think what was interesting is you guys have an FRD as well, which is for features. That's something we don't really have. That is so when something
actually you don't need that.
Yeah.
You write user stories, right?
Yeah. So we just end up skipping PRDs, but then I think it does cause confusion for some people, which is like, why does a PRD exist for this and not for that? Or
right,
where people are like, write a PRD for this, but then PMs are like, that's too small of a feature to actually go and make this document.
Write a PRD for her.
Yeah.
And that is where the hardcore definition of what you mean by a product needs to come in. So unless you define product versus feature versus module versus component, all these clearly with the organization, this confusion stays for the longest time. I've seen that happen multiple times. But the moment we froze, hey, these are the only lines of businesses of Headout and for Instamojo in the past, and these are the products we have in these lines of businesses, then it becomes far more clear that this is what we're talking about and why there's a PRD for this and not for that.
So Sidharth, can you talk a little bit about the current design sprint you guys are working on? So you guys are working on a rebrand.
Yeah.
I've been seeing snippets of that on your Instagram. So you want to just talk about what the goals are and what you expect moving forward with that sprint?
Right. I think I'm the biggest fan of discussing problems of why, right? Because whenever I see a rebrand, my first question is why the hell would you rebrand? What was the point of rebranding, right? I mean, the current brand, like you can see, works pretty well, right? But it does not. Like I'll show you what I mean. In fact, it's live right here. CTA with red colors is like a big question mark. The amount of colors are all over the place. In fact, I can start showing you. Here you see red and blue as dominant combination, and then yellow sprinkled in somewhere, right? And then the moment you start and enter into the booking flow, and you can see that these were designed at very different points in time because of you, you see a new color introduced, like the hell happened. Right? And then you see a gradient here. We did not have gradients on buttons so far, so what's going on, right? And then you see a whole, like it's a whole lot of mess in terms of this same mess fragmentation exists when we talk about colors, the typesetting, how we use that type, how we use the logo, what messaging we give, how we write copy. uh, you know all these pieces are fragmented, and the color rhapsody and does not yield well. The logo is also imbalanced. I don't know if you can see it. If you go on the website, and once I tell you this, you will not be able to unsee it. The spacing between HE and the rest of the word in headout is off, so there's an
True,
extra space between
true.
E and A,
Yeah.
right? Once you've seen it, it will irritate you every single time you see it. So that's what we suffer from. So there's a lot of problems with the brand, and there's no code definition comprehensive enough for us to build a brand around. Let's say tomorrow we want to start a campaign, right, for brand awareness. What is the core messaging? There've been many message pivoted and iterated over time. So that's where the core requirement comes from. And then because of that, we can't build a design system. Because of that, we can't run faster and move faster. They're all problems tied together. So this came down to just the easiest thing to do is go start from scratch, gather all that we have learned, all we have done in the market. And the best part to do rebranding at this year of Headout, in fifth to sixth year of existence is we already have customers. We already have some reputation with the customers. So all we need to do is learn what happened there, what worked, and amplify that.
Nice, nice. And what's the process you guys have been following? Can you actually pull up some of your Instagram shots? Maybe you can just give some context about what's behind that gram.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. In fact, I've been planning to work on a video for this for the longest time. So I think the first reveal happened about even first mention happened on this post where Nitish is sitting and making. I don't know if you can see he's writing on these boards, right? These are whiteboard. We sent out a survey, but survey did not have the kind. It just gave us like rough sort of keywords to go on, but it didn't give us stories that we wanted to build on, right? And brand is always about stories, about the emotional narrative you can build. So this is where we put out actual boards with written questions and a bunch of post-it notes in the cafeteria area, and people would come up and just write their answers on what is Headout, what is Headout's culture, what does Headout mean for customers. And this was internal survey where we want to learn from the our own company what they think Headout is, right? So this is where the process started. This is the same time we started doing research on what customers say about us on platforms we do not own. So Trustpilot and TripAdvisor and all these places. What are the keywords and phrases and ideas that emerge when customers write about us without us being in the picture, right? Yeah. So this is where so initial was a lot of data gathering and consolidating patterns around what is Headout, what do we stand for, who is our customer. In fact, I can probably there were 5 questions only. I won't be able to go to that because it's quite a bit of stuff is there. But yeah, there's what is Headout, what does it stand for, what is our mission for the company to exist, who is this mission for, who is this company for, who is our customer, what is common among our customer, and what are the promises that Headout is, what is the brand promise of Headout, that if Headout is there, this is one thing that is guaranteed. So this is what we kept researching about. First, it was a whole lot of text. Then we started reading it out to each other. We started taking out patterns, and if you see another photo, I think a lot of them I posted in stories. But this room, you can see, is filled. This room is filled with post-it notes, and these post-it notes is nothing but the patterns we saw in the answers from both customers and the staff. and the stakeholders, right? The co-founders who started the company, right? So this is where the answers came in, and that's what gave us direction and keywords to start mood boarding on, right? Zero down on these ideas and start mood boarding. Now, mood boards, you can look up mood boards, what those are. You can see a rough glimpse of what rough mood board looks like in this photo. Right here, we're discussing various mood boards and directions we can take. Then we finally zeroed down on one direction that we want to stick with and start exploring there. So currently we are looking at our logo, what to fix there. The word Headout is heavy, it's mouthful, but the type we are choosing to write it in today is tiny, puny, and the logo mark is heavy. The type is thin, it's just imbalanced. So those are the problems. Again, same process. You audit, you define problem statement and the constraints you have, and then you start fixing there, right? And another photo that was there in between, I think, was, yeah, these are the three photos that I posted up. Other were in stories. I don't know if I can. Oh, there are stories here. Oh yes, I have all the stories here.
Awesome,
So here you
awesome.
can see, us, recording of the audio as well. This was one of the main meetings where we actually are starting to put up those post-it notes. This is the time where we printed out all the answers we got from all the stakeholders and interviews we recorded and found out the patterns, right? And then we have this another one, again doing the same thing. You can see us like literally making notes and then deciding. This was the rough area. The lower boards, as you see, are the what people replied, right? These are the boards we had put out in
Okay,
the
nice.
cafeteria, right? So we got tons of interesting answers, and here you can see the final colors being discussed. And we spent 6 hours discussing two shades. Talk about designer's obsession. So this is the story of that one. We literally were at 11 o'clock in the office. Half the office is gone, and we discussing, staring at colors. And Varun is standing right there with us, the CEO, and he's deeply involved in the design team here. So that's the rough story of what's going on. I'm super excited to document all of it and share not only the brand but behind the scenes with you. Hopefully, we'll make a vlog on that with interviews from everybody who worked on it and other folks who were part of it, and get you behind the scenes sneak peek of how did we come up with this and what were we doing.
Nice,
But
man.
yeah, you've not heard about it in this much detail anywhere else. Not even on my Instagram.
Awesome, awesome. So, dude, last thing for the stream. We have about maybe 5 to 10 minutes left. What can
Yeah,
we? So, you have a YouTube as well. You started this a few months back. You want to actually just put it
right.
up on screen share, so people can actually check out what it is. So, in the next few months, what can we
Right,
expect from you on your YouTube, your Instagram,
right.
as well as overall, what can we expect from the design team at Headout?
Supposed to channel this. They're literally kids learning ML on their own and are like questioning, will I get a job? I'm like, are you kidding? If you go talk to any startup and say, I learned ML on my own and I produced this app which is on GitHub, you are hired, right? But you don't know that, right? So there's a big disconnect between the industry and the students, right? Which is the primary zone from where it started. And there's a lot of lack of platform for industry to come forward and share with so that is where this idea sort of emerged, that what can be in between. So the two major things you can expect is, one biggest thing you can expect is interview of folks in the industry. Right now you will see interviews of designers. I'm also going to add product managers, engineers, data analysts, business analysts. What do these people even do? What is the job of a business analyst, right? Like what are they doing? How does it relate to startup? How do you even get started as a business analyst? What do you study, right? So their stories and just general idea about what, like, people really come from variety of background, the variety of stories. And maybe while binge watching as a student, something strikes you when in this wall of content that this is interesting, that maybe I want to pursue this. And when you are in the industry, it gives you an idea that you're not alone, right? Somebody had
Yeah.
the journey you are currently having, which has helped me personally doing these interviews. The second thing you can expect is covering a lot of material on design, on startups, on tech, on product management, and a little bit on management side as well. So I may include some other things, life skills, including personal finance, which is very close to me. I love personal finance. So literally been just today been editing a video on CTC versus in hand, right? Where did my money go? Which is a like question I answer every year. There's a 1 hour workshop I do at office where I describe, okay, what are the taxes? Why do we pay taxes? How do you calculate them? How do you save them?
Yeah.
So just sort of turning that into And then it leads to a bigger discussion of things like why we can't retire, our generation can't retire, why saving investments are two different things. So how do they even differ? People don't. I mean, this basics of personal finance which should be taught in school is not taught. So expect a lot of that as well. So general life skills, whatever I was talking on stage only, I want to bring to YouTube and get more deeper into conversation. And I'll talk about whatever you folks want me to talk about, right? Many of the new ideas that I'm working on, for example, just one video I'm editing today, which should be coming out a couple of next week, is how do I know I'm growing as a designer? It's very easy early on. Oh, okay, I got a job, I got a raise, but that you get once a year or once in 2-3 years. If you're changing job once in 2-3 years, how do you know every day you're growing or not? How do you know week by week you're growing or not? Right? This is a question I constantly get from my team as well, and this is something I wanted to address. Right? So designer question, career questions, startup questions, tech questions. How does this happen? How does that happen? A lot of that. I'm again not so much into how-to videos, but there will be some of those as well. But those will be mostly around case studies, which are me taking, if I'm trying to show you how to use, let's say, something called entity relation maps, because I want to share a lot of frameworks that I use. Entity relation map is a framework I picked up from engineering. Now, how do you use that to decipher WhatsApp and all the design elements WhatsApp require to function, right? You can literally reverse engineer that. So there I will pick up case studies and how to, but I think that's the amount of how to you may see. There's a lot more going to be around the how to think, what to think, and how do you approach this particular subject kind of videos that I'm intending to make, and some real advanced stuff on management, like advanced stuff as in that maybe not may not be for beginners, but as you grow as a designer, eventually you come to a decision making point where you have to decide between being a manager or being an IC. Right, and I decided to go the management route, and I loved it. Right, as many people who decide are clueless, and I hated it. So I want to share. I know what that feels like for young managers coming out. So there's a little bit of that I've not even touched upon, but will come very soon, where I want to talk about how do you make sense of life as a manager. So yeah, there's a little bit of that that's going to come as well.
Awesome, man. That's actually a lot to look forward to.
Yeah,
We're
a
all
lot to make as well.
glad you're putting out content, because there's not enough people out there who are talking about that process.
Yeah.
And at least not frequently. Like every once in a while, you do see something which catches your eye, but we definitely need more people talking about what it's like to be a designer.
Yeah, and thank you for pushing, for pushing me. I remember, like met a bunch of months ago, and I was just toying with the idea, and Abhinav is the one who pushed me, and he's like, "Do it, do it." So
Yeah.
thank you for that. That helps a lot,
Welcome,
because
welcome. Yeah.
in your own head you are thinking thousand ideas. You're like, "Yeah, one day I'll figure." But when somebody is like, "No, you can and you must and you should," then it rings the bell in your head. So thanks a ton to you. A big part of the credit on what to expect on, like, what's happening on Instagram and
Yeah,
on
yeah.
YouTube goes to you as well.
Definitely, man. And thanks for putting out content consistently. It can be hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun as well, though. It's totally worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, everybody. So thanks a lot for joining in.
Thank you.
This has been a very fun live stream. Let us know what you thought of the format. This is probably the first of its type on my channel, but also, can I say the internet? I don't know. Let's see. We'll find out. Because I don't.
We'll find out.
Interviews are common. In-depth case studies of what you've done, not so common. So let us know in the Telegram group what you thought of this. We'll continue the conversation after this live chat in Telegram. So any other questions you guys have, feel free to post it there. Thanks a lot for watching. The Telegram link is t.me/abnux. Thanks, Sidharth. This was a fun session. We need to do one again. Let's figure out what our
for sure.
scene is going to be moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. This was tons of fun, man. Thanks for having me over, and thanks for joining in. Thanks a lot to all of you for joining in. This was a lot of fun. And let's join conversation in the Telegram group.
All right, Sidharth. See you. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
See you. Bye.